Hello. Hello, everyone. It has been a minute. My name is Stacey Nell. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, and we are back with yet another Lunch and Learn. I am thrilled, I say, to be joined by Dr. DeAngela Burns-Wallace. Hello, Dr. Burns-Wallace.
Hello, Stacey. How are you?
I'm doing good. So now it has been a while since I've done a Lunch and Learn. You honestly, and I keep have to remind myself not to call you Secretary Burns-Wallace because that's what you will always be in my heart. You will always be Secretary Burns-Wallace. But you were one of my first guests on. It was like I think it was almost like still like we both had COVID or something. Like we were both in our houses. So it's nice to see us out and about in our work environments. And so I thought I'd ask you back to have a refresher because you have left the Secretary of Administration. So
I have. So excited to join you today.
Okay. So let me do a refresher bio for people who may not know who Dr. Burns-Wallace is. How could you not know? But I will go ahead. So Dr. DeAngela Burns-Wallace is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. With more than $2.5 billion with a B dollars in assets, the Kauffman Foundation is one of the largest private foundations in the United States and focuses its work on providing equitable economic mobility for all. A native of Kansas City, Dr. Burns-Wallace brings a wide range of expertise to the foundation, including public sector, foreign affairs, and higher education. She began her career as a diplomat working for the United States State Department. I think she admitted in the last one that she was a spy, but we won't go into that. Including assignments in China, South Africa, and Washington, D.C. Okay, that wasn't true. Okay, she wasn't a spy. She shifted to higher education, where she worked across multiple institutions, leading administration and access initiatives, undergraduate education oversight, and diversity, equity, and inclusion leadership. Governor Laura Kelly recruited her to join her cabinet within the Kansas state government as the Secretary of Administration and the Chief Information Technology Officer. So that's two cabinet positions that she held. Dr. Burns-Wallace was the first African American to hold either cabinet seat in state's history. She recently stepped down from that position after 4 years to return to academia, most recently holding a faculty appointment at the University of Southern California. She has also been consulting with nonprofits and higher education institutions, as well as serving as a member on the prestigious Council of Foreign Relations and on the Stanford University Board of Trustees. However, the most important title to this Kansas City native is mom to her son, Xavier. So welcome again, Dr. Burns-Wallace.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
I love reading that bio, which, by the way, is shortened because it gives me something to aspire to, and I can think I too one day I can grow up and be like Dr. Burns-Wallace. So the first question I always ask for Lunch and Learns, what did you have for lunch?
So I had grilled salmon, some green beans, and some mashed sweet potatoes, like whipped sweet potatoes. They were good. So yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I had some leftover lunch from yesterday, so that's good.
Well, you'll have to join me for lunch over here at the foundation. Our cafe, our team, Bon Appetit, are amazing, and they keep us healthy and balanced and fed.
That sounds fantastic. All right, I'll take you up on that. Okay, so you are the newly being August of last year, appointed CEO and president of the Kauffman Foundation.
Yes.
Now that's a name, Kauffman is a name that people in Kansas City are familiar with. The Kauffman Performing Arts Center, the Kauffman Stadium where the Royals play, and the Kauffman Foundation. So now are those things, how are they linked? Are they linked? What's the link?
So Mr. Kauffman, Mr. and Mrs. Kauffman, of course, were huge Kansas City advocates, love of Kansas City, and left their kind of mark on Kansas City in multiple ways. So the foundation, we sit singularly, and so my purview is over the foundation itself, and we are a private foundation. The Performing Arts
Do
Center.
they at least get you Royals tickets? Like, can you get Royals?
So I can, but we actually have a major community giveaway that we still partner with the Royals. So, as many people know, Mr. Kauffman brought and ensured that the Royals would stay in Kansas City. And so we have kind of more of like a family relationship with them just because of that
Okay.
long history. Next week is opening day on the 28th, and we actually take our entire team, all 84 associates that work in our building, and we go to opening day every year as a team. So we'll
See,
be
that's awesome.
there. And then we do a huge community giveaway to teachers, nonprofits, students. All throughout the year, we partner with the Royals to do that. So both the Performing Arts Center as well as the Royals Kauffman Stadium are legacies of the family, of the Kauffman family, and their contributions to Kansas City. But only the foundation itself is under my purview.
Gotcha. Okay. So now that we got that cleared up, so talk to us about the foundation. So you say it's different. It's still part of the Kauffman sort of endowment to the city of Kansas City as whole. So what's the work specifically of the foundation?
So the foundation has always worked in and around Kansas City, but also nationally, really with focuses on areas like education, workforce, as well as entrepreneurship, one of the areas that we are very much known for. And it all stems from Mr. K's trajectory, his vision. He started Marion Labs. He started that
Mhm.
because he was a part of a larger pharmaceutical company. He was so successful. He was outshining and out actually producing top executives, and they told him that he couldn't do that. And he said, "I don't want to be a part of an organization that doesn't celebrate, those that are doing the work." So his tenets of leadership from Marion Labs that eventually would roll over to the foundation were really about owning your own business, meaning that you had the ability to have your economic kind of future prosperity in your own hands, right? But
Mhm.
he also was just a learner. And so a lover of education. He believed that learning, which could happen in so many different forms in the classroom, outside of the classroom, in the workplace, on the job, but that learning and supporting our youth through those pathways and the connectivity through education was key and critical to not just the success of those individuals, but of a larger community, right? So our work kind of in a more larger scale is really about ensuring that the communities that we serve here in particularly in the greater Kansas City area have access to the opportunities to control their own economic prosperity, right? And that's about removing systemic barriers, ensuring that individuals have access to education, to funding, to access to capital if you're a small business owner. We fund into any number of areas, but traditionally our tenants really focus a lot around education and entrepreneurship.
So when you say fund into the areas, what how does that look? What's the structure?
So we fund nonprofits that do this work.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily, we're not like the ones who are like doing the work per se. So we fund nonprofits, any host of organizations that do work. And so there is, for instance, in the education space, we work with real world learning. We are in over 26 school districts where we are partnering with those districts to deliver real world experiences, partnerships with employers for
Mhm.
students that they are learning during high school, having job internship opportunities throughout the school year that's a part of their curriculum, right?
Mhm.
They're getting exposed to real world learning opportunities, even before they're moving past high school, right? And so things like that. So that like that's an example that we fund into education. We don't do that work. We partner with the school districts who are delivering that opportunity to students. On the entrepreneurship side, you can imagine a small business, right? Those
Mhm.
budding entrepreneurs, they need technical support, they need access to capital. Sometimes they just need to understand the ecosystem of how to, you know, navigate legal systems, financial
Yeah.
systems, all of those things. So again, we're not the ones that are delivering that program, but we fund into the ecosystems, entrepreneur ecosystems in
Right.
particular, right? That make sure that those services are available in varying and different levels. And we do some of our work where we are looking very particularly at where are the gaps, right? And
Right.
so are there, so think about women, minority owned entrepreneurs that may not have the same level to access to capital as we know just from data, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's loans, grants, technical assistance, right? So we do also look at where are the gaps, because our work is about increasing access. So it's not just about like more businesses, but it's particularly about how are we increasing access so more individuals have access to the things and the tools that they need to control their economic freedom. So we are, for a big part of the work that we do, we fund into nonprofits, organizations, partnerships, but we're also a collaborator. We also
Mhm.
do research and share learning and evaluation. So we try to be a part of these conversations and things that are impacting our communities, whether it's from a policy standpoint, whether it's from a structural standpoint. And so we can play many different roles and hats, but we're primarily a funder into entities and organizations that are helping to remove those systemic barriers.
As you were talking, I was remembering. I have a cousin who was a part of, I want to say, Kauffman Scholars Program,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
she worked and so she came into the middle schools because I was teaching at a middle school, and she came in every so often. And there was Kauffman Scholar. I'm like, yep, that's right, that's right. You guys do,
Yeah.
sort of like get into the schools and start
Yeah.
encouraging people young.
We do. And those partnerships with the schools, Kauffman Scholars is a great example. That program was a 20-year program. We recently sunsetted it, where
Yeah.
we used to identify middle school students, support them through high school with wraparound services, and then actually move with them as they moved into college and help to fund. That program has now evolved into what is now KC Scholars, which is a much broader program, but still,
Oh, okay. Well, then talk about that, because I mean, I knew that the Kauffman Scholars Program had ended,
Mhm.
because I was at the open house that you did and saw the whole wall display
Yes.
of the Kauffman Scholars. But if it's morphed into something else, so for example, what is tell us about it?
So KC Scholars, and so it is, again, we don't run it, we fund it, which
Right.
is a beautiful thing. But KC Scholars, which is also part of Great Jobs KC, KC Scholars identifies high school seniors. It helps matches them to colleges, provides funding for them to move to and through, and then does wraparound support, coaching, support, internships, things of that nature that helps students move to and through. Their application typically opens in the fall for those seniors. But you can definitely check them out. Just type in KC Scholars and all of their requirements will come up. It is an amazing program that has partnerships throughout the region with, um, you know, every higher ed institution you can imagine in this region, which is exciting, but it's key and critical because it's not just about dollars, it's also about the support, that social
Yeah.
capital that is wrapping around our students to help them be successful. And it's designed for students who are in this greater Kansas City area is typically who is supported. Um, the other
Okay.
part of that work actually now is also Great Jobs KC. And Great Jobs KC is actually targeting a different part of the pipeline. It actually is more of the workforce development, particularly training and credentials, and helping individuals build those credentials no matter where you are in your journey. You could be just,
Hmm.
or you could be looking to change careers. Great Jobs KC offers a whole set of resources that help you identify new job opportunities, matches you onto the training, helps pay for that training, and then matches you with a career coach to help identify employment opportunities on the other side of that training. So those are programs that have morphed out of programs we have funded and initiated over
Hmm.
the years. And for me, I think that that's the beauty of the work in this space is that over time it can grow and it doesn't have to be one thing, and it
Hmm.
can almost reinvent itself to make sure that it is matching the needs of the communities that we're serving, so that we just don't have a program just to have it, but when one needs to sunset and another one rises, that is a new iteration that matches onto the current needs. That's an important piece, and I think that that's the beauty of philanthropy, that in some other parts of our sectors and industry we may not be as agile or as flexible sometimes to be able to pivot and match onto those needs.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, so I was going to ask a question, but then you said something that made me want to go. Oh, but yeah, okay. But yes, yes. So So, but the grant, the programs that you offer, or the programs that you work, or the programs that you fund, you
Mhm.
talked about serving the community. That one of the things that Mr. K's original goal, his original heart, was for
Mhm.
the community where you were located.
Yes.
And the foundation itself is located close to the Nelson Atkins Museum. It's in Kansas City, Missouri, on the Missouri side.
We actually sit, mhm.
Yeah, well, I was gonna go ahead. I was gonna say, but
Mhm.
like this idea
We
of
sit
serving the community, and I'm cheating because I've heard you talk about this, but like when you literally you look out and you face a
Mhm.
community, and that's the community you want to serve. I'm like, hitting these softballs towards you. Go ahead.
Yes. No, so what I will say is that we are situated off of Rock Hill Road, and we literally face Troost, which traditionally in Kansas City is an actual had been a racial dividing line. So east of Troost, west of Troost, it has a long history in terms of the redlining of the
Mhm.
city and districting, and so the building that we sit in actually has two wings that sit open, and the design of it was that we were supposed to have our arms open to truce, because east of truce, that is the community for which we were designed to serve. Our work has always been grounded in creating opportunity and access. Mr. K talks about that every individual should have the ability to control their own economic power. But he recognized that there were actually systemic issues that block certain communities and individuals from having that same access to opportunities. And that's what things like Kauffman Scholars were. It was the access to a higher education fundamentally should be that you have all the wraparound support that you need, that you have the dollars that you need to access higher ed. And so in these spaces and places, our work really is about closing gaps. It is about creating access and opportunity points so that we are in a position to ensure that individuals within our communities have full access. And again, it can be access to the capital they need for their small business. It can be access to the technical assistance they need to file, necessary paperwork with the state to access dollars or resources or opportunity. It can be scholarships. It can be workforce opportunities. We work out with a lot of different nonprofits that are doing, different work in the community. Some that are, doing community development, to others that are, working again in youth education, early pathways. I mean, we run the gamut. We run a summer internship called ProX, where students, high school students, are matched with employers for internships, right? So I mean, there's so many pieces of it, but the thread all the way through, even from the beginning of the foundation to the work now, is that it has always really been about how do you create greater access? How do you ensure that the systemic issues that are blocking that access to opportunities or to resources, that our work is about how do we help remove those systemic issues? How do we help close gaps so that every single community, that every single person in the community has the same opportunity to truly grow their economic prosperity, their development, all of those aspects.
I find it interesting because you had mentioned that that type of mindset, that type of worldview approach has been in, like, it was Mr. K himself who put it sort of
Mhm,
in the donor statements, like in the founding documents of the foundation.
mhm.
And the foundation has been around. I mean, the foundation wasn't just, here from like 2021, was it?
No, no, the
No.
foundation has been around for over close to 50 years.
Right. So I think it's important. It's worth stating that this idea of understanding that there are systemic issues that may impact various communities in different ways, and that it's the work. It could be the work of a foundation to help overcome those barriers. Is not a new idea. I think we're in a time now where people are sort of shooting down those ideas as if they're new, as if it's like this catchphrase like DEI, right? Or I don't even want to say like woke or whatever, but this is not new. And well, this wasn't on the list of questions I was going to ask you, but why do you think that Mr. Kauffman had that type of awareness 50 years ago. Because
Mhm.
50 years ago, that might have been a new thing for a person to say, hey, we're going to really set it out as our reason for being, to open our arms to
Mhm.
truce and say we're going to help this community. Do you have any insight as to who he was as a person?
And Mr. K, like there is a lot of like there's books about him. There are a lot of clips where he shares like pieces of his vision. And I will say, as I understand it, the vision of the foundation grew over time. So it may not have
Mhm.
started that way. You start a
Okay.
family foundation and it grows over time. So what I will say is by, the late 80s, early 90s, when, Project Choice, which was the first iteration of the Kauffman Scholars, started, when Mr. K took a group of middle schoolers from his middle school, Westport Middle, and told them, if you graduate in 4 years, when you graduate in 4 years, I'm going to pay for you to go to college, right? That was
Mhm.
the graduating class of 1992. That was the first class of Project Choice, one of the really early programs and initiatives that came out of the foundation in that way, right?
I think
So,
I remember that because I
yeah,
graduated 2 years too. I like graduated 2 years too early, and I was like,
yeah.
oh.
I graduated that same year, but from a different high school. And I remember asking my dad, can I transfer? Like, right. So what I will say is I think over time, maybe that evolved with the foundation. But I think one of the things was that Mr. K was actually, as someone who grew up in Kansas City, and you may also remember, he was in the community. Like he
Mhm.
was a part of things that were happening in community, bringing the Royals. He talked so much about the Royals being Kansas City's team, right? And there were so many things that were done during that mid to late 80s in community to ensure that community had access to the Royals and the resources that came with that, that spilled over into his work into educational spaces, and eventually would show up as things like Project Choice. So part of the from what I have read, because I never met him personally, but also from those that I've spoken with who had the pleasure of working with him, this really was who he was. It's how he led. At Marion Labs, he called every member of his team an associate, and we still do. They didn't work for him. They weren't staff. They weren't employees. They were all associates because he felt that they did the work together. And every member of that team had part ownership in Marion Labs. And the story goes, when Marion Labs was sold, there were a lot of people at a lot of levels that were in a wonderfully new financial position, right?
Yeah, yeah.
he his work at the time was about understanding and being part of community. And so to think about, as that work started to evolve, like why it had that focus, it was because he was a part of that community and he could see the differences, right? He
Right.
could see, okay, if students had, some students had access to X, Y, and Z, some business owners like himself, he had access to certain things that allowed him to start his business. Well, along the way, he met and would find many others who didn't have the same level of access, right? Or the same knowledge around along the way that could have been successful business owners, but didn't have that opportunity, right? So
Mhm, mhm.
I really believe, on everything that I've seen of Mr. K, it came out of his own personal experiences, right? He understood that like he was able to control trajectory and his economic prosperity through owning business, and recognize that, if I can do that, someone else can do that. But as I look
Mhm.
around, all things aren't equal, right?
Right.
Because he was a part of these communities, because he was in these communities, he began to understand and I think see some of that. And that is reflected in the way that he talks about the work that he wanted the foundation to do, right? To be a part of community, to be in alignment with community. Um, Again, not to play a role. He talks about that, one, money can't solve all things, that it has to be a collective effort, right? He talks about, if we can solution for these tough things in Kansas City, we can be a model for the rest of the world, right? He was saying this stuff, in the 80s, right? Like
Wow.
well before
A
others were.
man ahead of his time.
He really was. And that's, I think, what over the years the foundation has just continued to build upon, and what you see today. And so I say our work is grounded in equity. And that is because it's about gap closing, it's about creating, access to greater opportunity. And again, it's not handing someone and saying, here's X, Y, and Z. It is if we can remove systemic barriers, individuals chart their own path. They
Right,
come up
right.
with their own levels and values of how they move to and through, and how they build wealth, and how they build that economic prosperity, how they move that generationally, and sustain that, and all of
Yeah,
that, right? So our work isn't necessarily delivery of dollars as much as when you remove systemic barriers, you change the
to see what
trajectory
people can do. Yeah,
of what people are able to do. And that is how we see the work.
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I know you've only been at the position for, well, maybe 6 months, 8 months, something like that. And I know, and I was going to ask you what was on the horizon. And so I know that you've been thinking horizon-ish.
Yes. So we actually are in the middle of a strategic refresh, or actually we're close to the end of it. I've been in the role for about 7 months, and have been doing lots of external listening and engagement. If anybody follows me on LinkedIn, I have been everywhere. We do something called Kauffman on the Move. It's what Mr. K would use at Marion Labs, saying that his associates needed to always be on the move in community. And so there's running jokes that like I'm like on the move because I'm all over. But that engagement and that listening to our community partners really has fueled what we're doing in terms of a strategic refresh, making sure the funding and the work that we go forward is in align with community needs. Right. And so we're hoping that in probably about a month, in early to mid April, that we're able to kind of push out some of that strategic refresh that will help direct new funding opportunities,
So kind of a
help
watch this space type of
that
situation.
type of situation, and hopefully also help us to think about our partners, think about kind of collective impact of making sure like we understand what the priorities are in this region, and that we're able to match onto them based on also our priorities and how that aligns. So it's an exciting time. We have made an announcement in early March around new individuals joining our team. And two of those individuals are very seasoned, experienced female leaders that both were originally from Kansas City and spent most of their careers working in and around the country at very high levels. So we're excited to bring that talent back home to Kansas City to really help our efforts. So there's a lot of good going on. Follow us if you're on like LinkedIn or Instagram, or hit our website. You can join a newsletter that's called Current. We tell you what's going on, what's current. But we are in a position where our work isn't going to fundamentally change overnight. We're not going to be like in these various new places, but we do hope that as we go forward that we can see greater alignment, and that making sure that we are in community, that we are listening
Mhm.
to and being responsive to the priorities and needs, with that alignment. So we're excited about it.
Cool, cool. So, I mean, I was planning on asking, how was it? Do you find this work radically different than working as the Secretary of Administration and the Chief Technology Officer for the state of Kansas? Like, was that a weird shift to go from state into? No.
No, my career has been in federal government, higher ed, state government, and now philanthropy. And I always talk about that the pull thread throughout my career is being in service, right? My roles have always been in positions where I am looking at how do we marshal and leverage resources, talent, opportunities, experience, knowledge to better and support a community, right? And in
Gotcha.
each of my roles, it was a little bit different. My day to day might be different, but that higher level really is about what are the resources? What are the communities we need to serve? How do we make those match? What do we need to leverage? I also am a policymaker by training. And so I'm
Yeah.
always looking for that policy thread, right? What are the larger systemic things that we need to understand? From the work that we did at the state, I dealt with systemic issues day in and
Mhm.
day out. So to be able to bring and leverage that knowledge and those relationships into the work that I'm doing now is exciting. It's my day to day is different. My team is smaller. I literally once a week have an all staff meeting. And I joked when I first like had the first one, like they all fit in a room, Stacy. And I was like, you all don't understand. For 4 years, the only way I could bring all my staff together was on the lawn of the state capitol. Like the Department of Administration itself was like 600-700 people, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
it's a lot.
IT division was well over 100. And if we pulled in the other agencies, ITs, that, was eightfold, right? And so I say to them all the time, like, oh my God, we fit in a room. Like by Christmas, I knew everybody's name. It was like so I will tell you, that is probably the most kind of drastically different piece, is just having a little bit of a smaller team. But our impact and the work that we do and the reach that we have is probably just like it's regional, it's
Yeah,
national, and
I
in
was
some
gonna
parts
say
it's international. So the
yes.
scope and scale of the work, and the importance of the work, different, but still at that same level. But it is fun, I have to say, to have a team that I can know everyone's name, and can walk the building and see people or sit down at lunch, and so that's fun. And I miss my big team back at State. I had an amazing team, both with OITS and the Department of Administration. Love that team considerably, but this is fun. It is fun to have
Well,
a
I see Adam Prophet every once in a while, and I'm like,
uh-huh.
you got big shoes to fill.
He's
I
doing a
can't
great
talk.
job. We talk all the time. And I love the work that he is doing in that seat. So, but yeah, it's I told him it's not an easy seat to sit in.
No, no. Okay, so last question,
Mhm.
kind of in the same vein of what did you have for lunch? We can't see your feet right now, but I can tell the listening population that Dr. Burns-Wallace has led the charge following. Oh, she's going to say her feet. Following, my first person I noticed was Dr. Tiffany Anderson, the superintendent. See, there you go, of the Lawrence or the Topeka Public Schools. They have left the world of high heels behind and have taken on the world of designer and interesting and wonderful tennis shoes. I have decided that I need to follow in the example and of great Black women before me. So where do you get your shoes? Like where because like you have like sparkly shoes, like
Mhm.
that's probably honestly that's the most plainest pair of tennis shoes that I've seen you wear yet. See, okay, yeah, see, and I see the little metallic. I've seen things that are like bedazzled. I've seen things that have your initials on them. I've
Yeah.
seen things like you're not just wearing like a pair of just plain old Nikes you go to Academy Sports and get. So fill us in.
But what we do is we go get them from Academy Sports, and then we partner with local nonprofits like One Pair, who works with youth entrepreneurs, who design me a pair of tennis shoes, right? They take my Air Force Ones that I buy at Academy Sports or wherever, and then they then redesign them and give them
They
back.
make them fancy.
They make them fancy. So, but seriously, we've done that. So I have a couple pair of design shoes that a couple of youth entrepreneurs through One Pair and other organizations have done. But to be honest, like I buy them any place I find them. Right? If I see once, so I when I took on this role, I knew that I would be out and about a lot, but I also had a injury shortly before that with my ankle,
Uh,
and there was a break between my role as the secretary and stepping to this role. I was actually on an intentional pause for about 8 months, and so during that time period, I didn't wear heels at all because I was, working from home. I was on the computer. I was moving around, and then as I started to go through the interview process for this, I couldn't wear heels because I had injured my ankle. So when we did the launch or the announcement for me, and I was getting my Kauffman blue and my jacket and all of this, and I saw these pair of Michael Kors, and they were light blue, dark blue, with a little bit of a heel, but a tennis shoe, and I was like, "What? What if?" Right? And I tell you, they went over so well. I have never looked back. But what it has charged me to do is I now go look for cute tennis shoes, or when I'm traveling, or even better, friends and colleagues hit me up when they see a cute pair and they
Yeah.
will take a picture or send me a link, and I'm like, thank you, right? But to your point, you have seen me at formal events in a full-on ball gown with cute bedazzled tennis shoes, right? Not the high heels. But I say one, it's because I'm on the move like Mr. K. But two, I'm also in the stage of my life that I want to show up how I need to show up and be comfortable and be able to move. And so I am never without a pair. My pairs always match. They're cute, they're sparkly because that's me. Um, but you know what? The other part is I am unapologetic about it. I'm like, yeah. And the fun part is now I show up places and people are looking for my shoes.
Oh
They're
yeah.
like, what are you wearing today? Right.
Oh
And I
yeah.
love that. I'm like, yes. So I try to represent. I was at the KC Current game this weekend and literally had to drive all over town to find the tennis shoes with the current teal. And I
Oh
found
yeah. I was gonna say you had to get that right color.
I did. I did. Check out my LinkedIn because I posted Teal Rising and I found a pair to match.
There you go. Well, that's great. Thank you. And on that note, on that happy note, thank you so much, Dr. Burns-Wallace, for giving, because I know for a fact that you are busy, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come back and talk to us here at the state level. We think of you fondly. I know I miss not having you closer, but that's okay. That's fine.
No,
Adam
I miss
Kaufman
you
is
all
just,
too,
it's
but
not the same. It's not the same talking to him.
thank you so much. No, this has been fun taking me back to my state days. And I do miss the work, the people. It was a wonderful time. It was a lot. And so I don't miss the late nights and the 24/7, but I do really miss the teams there and the work that we were able to do for the state of Kansas while we were in that role. So, but thank you for having me, and again, encourage people to follow us, Kauffman.org. Check out the foundation, the work that we do. We're in community and trying to do more and be that partner. So
When I post this, I'll link Kauffman.org. I'll link the KC Scholars and the Great Jobs KC, and anything that you talked about. I'll find those links and put that in with the show notes and description and all that good stuff.
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us for our Lunch and Learn. I will be back soon with another one. Have a great day.